The border checkpoint buzzes with tension as families clutch their documents, children pressed close to their parents' sides. I'm 17, standing behind my mother Rebecca and father William, watching my younger sister Alison fidget nervously with her passport. Next! The immigration officer's voice cuts through the humid air. My parents step forward with Alison between them. I follow, but my father's hand shoots out, stopping me. "Eleanor stays here," he says without looking back. The words hit like ice water. "What?" My mother finally turns, her face a mask of cold determination. "We can only take one of you. Alison's younger. She has a better chance at the American dream." "But I'm your daughter too." My voice cracks, desperation bleeding through. "I got accepted to Columbia University. I have the scholarship letter right here." William's jaw tightens. "Alison needs us more. You're almost 18. You can figure it out on your own." The immigration officer looks up impatient. "Are you crossing together or not?" "Just the three of us," Rebecca says, her voice steady as stone. She doesn't even glance at me as she places her hand on Alison's shoulder. Alison finally looks back at me, her eyes wide with confusion and guilt. "Eleanor, Move along," the officer barks. I watch my family walk through the checkpoint, leaving me standing alone with nothing but a worn backpack and shattered dreams. Alison keeps looking over her shoulder, tears streaming down her face, but she doesn't stop walking. The checkpoint gate closes with a final, decisive clang. 3 months later, I'm dead. The fever takes me in a cramped hostel room in Tijuana. No money for proper medical care, no family to call, no future to fight for. The last thing I remember is staring at the peeling ceiling, wondering if my parents even noticed I never made it across. But death isn't the end. I wake up gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs. The same humid air, the same bustling crowd, the same immigration checkpoint stretching before me. I'm 17 again. My hands shake as I check my phone. June 15th, 2019. The same date. The same day my parents abandoned me. But this time, I know exactly what's going to happen. "Eleanor, stay close." My mother's voice drifts back to me as she walks ahead with Alison. I study them with new eyes. Rebecca clutches a manila folder against her chest. The same folder that holds all our documents. But I remember something she doesn't know I saw. The extra papers tucked inside. The fake employment letter she created for William. The forged bank statements showing savings they never had. The fabricated sponsor letter from her cousin Miguel, who moved to Canada 2 years ago. My parents aren't just abandoning me. They're entering the United States on fraudulent documents. A slow smile spreads across my face. Next. This time, when my father's hand shoots out to stop me, I'm ready. "Actually, officer," I call out, my voice carrying clearly across the checkpoint. "I think you should check their documents more carefully." William spins around, his face flushing red. "Eleanor, what are you doing?" The immigration officer's eyes narrow, suddenly alert. "Is there a problem here?" "My parents are using fake documents," I say, pulling out my phone. "I have photos of them creating the forgeries last week." "It's a lie, but a convincing one." My mother's face goes white as paper. "That's ridiculous!" Rebecca snaps, but her voice wavers. "Eleanor's just upset because you're abandoning your own daughter." The officer's tone turns sharp with disapproval. He gestures to his colleagues. "Please step aside for additional screening." As security approaches, I watch my father's carefully constructed facade crumble. The confident businessman becomes a sweating, stammering man whose hands tremble as he fumbles for his documents. "Eleanor, please," Alison whispers, tears already forming in her eyes. "Don't do this to us." But I remember dying alone in that hostel room. I remember the fever, the hunger, the crushing loneliness of being discarded like garbage by the people who should have loved me most. "You did this to yourselves," I say softly. The officers escort my family to a separate room for interrogation. Through the glass, I watch as they spread our documents across the table. My mother's fake employment letter, William's forged bank statements, the sponsor letter from Miguel, who immigration will quickly discover doesn't live where they claimed. Within an hour, my parents are in handcuffs. Eleanor Rodriguez? A different officer approaches me. I'm Agent Patterson. We need to ask you some questions. Of course, I say, adopting the perfect expression of a shocked, innocent daughter. I can't believe they would do something like this. I thought we were crossing legally. Agent Patterson's expression softens slightly. How old are you? 17. I turn 18 next month. Do you have anywhere to go? I pull out my acceptance letter to Columbia University, the same letter my parents ignored in my previous life. I have a full scholarship here. I was planning to start in the fall, but I let my voice trail off, painting the picture of a devastated but resilient young woman. Let me make some calls, Agent Patterson says gently. There are programs that help minors in situations like this. Through the glass wall, I see my mother pointing frantically in my direction, her mouth moving rapidly. She's probably telling them I'm lying, that I'm just a spiteful teenager trying to hurt my family. But the evidence speaks for itself. The documents are fake. Miguel, when contacted, confirms he never sent a sponsor letter. The employment verification leads to a disconnected phone number. My parents built their house of lies on sand, and I simply let the tide come in. Agent Patterson returns with a social worker named Janet Mills. Eleanor, we've contacted your university. They're willing to work with you on housing arrangements until you turn 18. You'll be placed in a transitional program for unaccompanied minors. What about my parents? I ask, injecting just the right amount of concern into my voice. They're being processed for immigration fraud, Agent Patterson explains grimly. They'll likely face deportation and a permanent ban from entering the United States. Perfect. As they lead my parents away in handcuffs, William finally meets my eyes through the glass. The look he gives me is pure hatred, but underneath I see something else. Fear. He knows exactly what I've done, and he knows he deserves it. Alison presses her face against the glass, sobbing. Eleanor, I'm sorry. I didn't want to leave you behind. Please, help us. But I remember her walking away without a word when it mattered. I remember how she looked back with guilt, but never stopped moving toward her American dream. I'm sorry too, I whisper, knowing she can't hear me through the glass. Janet Mills places a gentle hand on my shoulder. This must be incredibly difficult for you, discovering your parents were willing to break the law and then having to make the choice to do the right thing. It was the hardest decision of my life, I lie smoothly. But I couldn't be part of something illegal, even if they are my family. The social worker nods approvingly. You're very mature for your age. I think you're going to do well in America. As we walk away from the checkpoint, I don't look back at my family being processed for deportation. In my previous life, they left me behind without a second glance. Now, they know exactly how abandonment feels, but this is just the beginning. My parents' immigration fraud is only the first domino to fall. I remember everything from my previous life, every lie they told, every corner they cut, every person they betrayed on their climb towards success, and I'm going to expose every single one. 6 weeks later, Columbia University's financial aid office smells like coffee and desperation. I sit across from Counsellor Lisa Chen. My acceptance letter and scholarship documents spread between us. Your case is unprecedented, Eleanor, Lisa says, adjusting her glasses. A minor whose parents were arrested for immigration fraud while attempting to enter the country illegally. The university wants to help, but we need proper documentation for your housing arrangements. I slide a folder across her desk. Agent Patterson helped me compile everything. My birth certificate, my parents' arrest records, the social services placement letter. She flips through the documents, her expression growing more sympathetic with each page. It says here, your parents attempted to abandon you at the border. They told immigration they were only travelling as a family of 3. They planned to leave me behind permanently. I let genuine pain creep into my voice. I only exposed their fraud because I couldn't watch them break the law, even though it meant losing my family. Lisa's eyes soften. You made an incredibly difficult but ethical choice. The university is prepared to offer you emergency housing and work-study opportunities. Thank you, I whisper, playing the grateful victim perfectly. But gratitude isn't what's burning in my chest. It's cold satisfaction. In my previous life, I died believing my parents chose Alison over me out of love. Now I know the truth. They chose her because she was easier to control, more likely to stay quiet about their illegal schemes. My phone buzzes. A text from Janet Mills. Immigration wants to interview you again. They're building a broader case against your parents. Perfect timing. 2 days later. Agent Patterson's office walls are covered with photos, documents, and string connecting various pieces of evidence. It looks like a detective show, except the criminals are my parents. Eleanor, we've discovered your parents had been planning this crossing for over 2 years, Patterson explains, pulling out a thick file. We found communications with document forgers, payments to smuggling networks, and evidence of other fraudulent activities. I lean forward, feigning shock. Other activities? Tax evasion in Mexico. Your father was running an unlicensed construction business while collecting key unemployment benefits. Your mother was working under a false identity at a textile factory. I already knew all of this from my previous life, but I widened my eyes appropriately. I had no idea they were criminals. There's more. Agent Patterson pulls out printed emails. We found correspondence between your parents and your mother's cousin Miguel from 3 years ago. Your parents asked him to lie about sponsoring them, promising to pay him once they were established in America. But Miguel refused, didn't he? I ask, already knowing the answer. Exactly. That's when they decided to forge his signature and create fake documentation. Miguel is cooperating fully with our investigation. The pieces click together beautifully. My parents' desperation drove them to increasingly illegal acts, each one leaving a trail of evidence. In their minds, abandoning me was just another calculated move to improve their odds of success. Agent Patterson, I say carefully, there's something else you should know. His attention sharpens. What is it? Before we left Mexico, I overheard my parents talking about money they'd hidden. They said if anything went wrong, they'd use it to disappear and try crossing at a different location. This is a lie, but a strategic one. I need to ensure they can't simply return to Mexico and regroup. Where is this money hidden? Patterson asks, reaching for his notepad. In our old house in Guadalajara. My father buried it under the backyard shed. He said it was their emergency escape fund. I pause, letting tears form. I didn't think they meant escaping from their own daughter. Patterson immediately reaches for his phone. I need to contact Mexican authorities. If your parents were planning to fund continued illegal attempts to cross the border... Agent Patterson? I interrupt softly. What's going to happen to Alison? His expression grows grim. She's a minor, so she won't face criminal charges. But she'll be deported with your parents and banned from entering the United States for 10 years minimum. She's only 15, I murmur, injecting sympathy into my voice, while my heart sings with satisfaction. This will destroy her future. Your parents made these choices, Eleanor, not you. But I remember Alison's face when our parents chose her, the brief flicker of relief before the guilt set in. She was willing to let me be abandoned as long as she got her American dream. Now she gets to learn what abandonment feels like. The next morning. My temporary foster placement is with Maria Santos, a woman who specialises in housing unaccompanied minors. Her small apartment in Queens is clean but cramped. and she treats me with the kind of careful kindness reserved for traumatized children. "Eleanor, you have visitors," Maria calls from the living room. I find Agent Patterson waiting with a woman I don't recognize. Tall, stern-faced, carrying a briefcase. "This is Agent Rodriguez from the Mexico Liaison Office," Patterson explains. "She needs to ask you about your parents' assets." Agent Rodriguez sits across from me, her dark eyes intense. "Eleanor, we searched your family's property in Guadalajara based on your information. We found exactly what you described. Hidden cash totaling nearly $50,000. I managed to look surprised. "That much?" "Your parents had been skimming money from construction jobs for years, not paying taxes on cash payments. This money was definitely intended to fund continued illegal border crossings." Maria makes a small sound of disapproval. "How could parents put their children at such risk?" "There's more," Agent Rodriguez continues. "We also found documents showing your parents had contacts with human trafficking networks. They weren't just planning to cross themselves, they were going to help smuggle other families for profit." This part I didn't know from my previous life, and my shock is genuine. They were going to become smugglers. It appears so. The hidden money was seed capital for a larger operation. Agent Rodriguez leans forward. "Eleanor, this information elevates your parents' case to federal trafficking charges. They're looking at 20 years in prison, not just deportation." My hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of justice being served. In my previous life, my parents simply abandoned me and continued their lives. Now, their entire criminal network is unraveling. "What about my sister?" I ask. "She'll still be deported, but she won't face trafficking charges. However, the enhanced criminal penalties for your parents mean she'll likely never be allowed to enter the United States, even as an adult." Perfect. Allison gets to live with the consequences of our parents' choices, just as I had to die with them in my previous life. After the agents leave, Maria sits beside me on the couch. "This must be overwhelming, Eleanor, learning your parents were involved in such serious crimes." "I keep thinking I should have known," I whisper, playing my role. "Maybe I could have stopped them before it went this far. You were just a child trying to survive. You couldn't have prevented their choices." But that's where Maria is wrong. In my previous life, I was helpless. In this life, I am the architect of their destruction. My phone buzzes with a news alert. "Major human trafficking ring uncovered at border. Parents abandon daughter to fund criminal enterprise." I smile in as I read the headline. By tomorrow, the story will be everywhere. My parents won't just be deported criminals. They'll be infamous examples of how greed destroys families. And I'm just getting started. 3 weeks later, the CNN interview studio feels ice cold under the bright lights. I sit across from anchor Jennifer Walsh, my Columbia University sweatshirt carefully chosen to emphasize my innocent student image. We're here with Eleanor Rodriguez, the 17-year-old who exposed her own parents' human trafficking operation. Jennifer begins, her voice carrying that perfect television sympathy. "Eleanor, this must have been an impossible choice." I take a steadying breath, letting my eyes glisten with unshed tears. When I realized my parents were willing to abandon me at the border, I thought that was the worst betrayal possible. I never imagined they were using our family's immigration as cover for something so much darker. "Tell us about the moment you decided to speak up." I saw my mother clutching those documents, and something felt wrong. In my heart, I knew I couldn't be part of a lie, even if it meant losing my family forever. I pause, letting genuine pain colour my voice. But I never expected the investigation to uncover a trafficking network. I thought I was just stopping document fraud. Jennifer leans forward. "The authorities say your information was crucial in dismantling an operation that could have smuggled hundreds of people. How does that feel?" "Overwhelming," I whisper. I keep thinking about all the families who might have been put in danger. If staying silent meant more children could be separated from their parents. I shake my head. I couldn't live with that. The interview continues for 20 minutes, each question allowing me to craft my image as a heroic whistleblower who sacrificed everything for justice. By the time it airs, I'll be America's sweetheart, the brave daughter who chose country over corrupt family. 2 hours later, my phone explodes with notifications as the interview clips spread across social media. #Eleanor Rodriguez is trending on Twitter, with thousands of messages calling me brave, inspiring, a true American hero. But buried among the praise is a message that makes my blood freeze. Unknown number. I know what you really did, Eleanor. We need to talk. A friend from your past life. My hands shake as I read it again. In my previous life, I died alone. No one knew about the rebirth except me. This is impossible. My phone rings. Unknown number. Hello? I answer cautiously. Eleanor Rodriguez, the girl who died of fever in a Tijuana hostel 3 months ago. The voice is male, young, with a slight Mexican accent. Except you're not dead, are you? My throat goes dry. I don't know what you're talking about. Room 23 at the Casablanca Hostel, July 15th, 2019. You died at 3:47 a.m. while staring at water stains on the ceiling. His voice is calm, matter of fact. I was in room 24. I heard you calling for your mother before you stopped breathing. The details are too specific to be a guess. Who are you? Name's Antonio Vega. I died 2 days after you. Knife wound from a robbery gone wrong. But unlike you, I didn't get a second chance. I just got to watch. Watch what? Watch you destroy your family with surgical precision. Watch you manipulate federal agents like chess pieces. Watch you craft the perfect victim narrative for the cameras. He pauses. You're not the innocent girl everyone thinks you are, Eleanor. You're something much more dangerous. My mind races. If Antonio can somehow observe me, if he retained memories from his death, then others might know too. What do you want? Justice. Your parents might be criminals, but they loved Allison. She's 15 years old, and you've sentenced her to a life of poverty and shame. That's not justice. That's revenge. They abandoned me to die, I hiss, dropping my careful mask for the first time in weeks. And you've made sure they'll rot in prison for 20 years, while their innocent daughter pays the price. Congratulations, you've become exactly what they were. Someone who destroys children to get what they want. The line goes dead. I stare at my phone, fury and fear warring in my chest. Antonio is wrong. Allison chose her side when she walked through that checkpoint without looking back. She was willing to benefit from my abandonment, so she can suffer the consequences. But if Antonio retained his memories, what else might be possible in this second life? The next morning, my Columbia orientation packet arrives in Maria's mailbox, thick with dormitory assignments and class schedules. Real evidence that my new life is working exactly as planned. Eleanor, there's someone here to see you, Maria calls from the front door. I freeze. If Antonio somehow tracked me down. But it's Agent Patterson, accompanied by a woman I don't recognise. Petite, professional, carrying herself like law enforcement. Eleanor, this is Agent Lopez from Internal Affairs, Patterson explains, his usual warmth notably absent. She needs to ask you some questions about your testimony. My heart pounds, but I keep my expression confused and cooperative. Is something wrong? Agent Lopez sits across from me, her eyes sharp and calculating. We've been reviewing your case, and some inconsistencies have emerged. You claim to overhear your parents discussing hidden money in Guadalajara, but when we interviewed your neighbours, they said your family moved out of that house 6 months before you attempted border crossing. Shit. I used information from my previous life without checking if the timeline matched this reality. I must have been confused, I stammer. We moved around a lot. Maybe it was a different house. The money we found was buried at your grandmother's property, not your parents' house, Lopez continues. Your grandmother admitted your father asked to store emergency funds there, but she had no idea it was connected to criminal activity. Think fast. My father always called my grandmother's house home. When he said our house, I assumed he meant where we lived, not where he grew up. Lopez makes a note, but her expression remains skeptical. There's also the matter of your tip about the trafficking network. You claim to overhear your parents discussing smuggling operations, but phone records showed their first contact with trafficking networks happened after they were arrested. My mouth goes dry. In my desperation to destroy them completely, I gave investigators information that hadn't happened yet in this timeline. Maybe I misunderstood what they were talking about, I say weakly. Eleanor, Patterson's voice is gentle but firm, we want to believe you're telling the truth, but these discrepancies are serious. If you provided false information to federal investigators, I would never lie about something like this, I protest, letting tears flow freely. My parents abandoned me. They were willing to leave me to die at that border. Why would I protect them? Agent Lopez exchanges a glance with Patterson. We're not accusing you of lying intentionally, but trauma can affect memory, especially in someone your age. We need to verify every detail of your testimony. After they leave, I pace Maria's small living room like a caged animal. My perfect revenge is starting to unravel because I got greedy, because I wanted to hurt my parents beyond what their actual crimes deserved. But I'm not giving up, not when I'm this close to everything I wanted. My phone buzzes with another message from Antonio. The truth has a way of surfacing, Eleanor. Your house of cards is falling down. I delete the message and block the number, but his words echo in my mind. If my testimony falls apart, my parents might only face deportation instead of prison. Allison might get another chance at her American dream. That's not acceptable. I need a new strategy, one that doesn't rely on impossible knowledge from my previous life. I need to make my parents destroy themselves with evidence that exists in this timeline. And I know exactly where to find it. Federal Detention Center 2 days later. The visiting room smells like disinfectant and despair. My parents sit across from me in orange jumpsuits, looking older than their 45 years. Allison huddles between them, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Eleanor, my mother's voice cracks as she reaches toward the glass barrier separating us. Please tell them you made a mistake. Tell them you were confused. I study their faces through the reinforced glass, seeing the desperation I felt in my previous life reflected back at me. I wish I could, Mum, but the evidence speaks for itself. What evidence? William slams his hand against the table. You gave them information that doesn't even make sense. The timeline is impossible. He's right, but he doesn't know why. I lean forward, lowering my voice. Dad, I found your real ledger. The colour drains from his face. What ledger? The one you hid in Allison's backpack. The one with actual records of bribes you paid to building inspectors in Guadalajara. Names, dates, amounts, everything going back 3 years. It's a complete fabrication, but I watch my father's expression crumble as he realises the implications. In this timeline, he probably did keep records. Criminals always think they're smarter than they are. I don't know what you're talking about, he whispers, but his hands are shaking. Allison still has the backpack they gave her when she was processed. I continue smoothly. The agents haven't searched her personal belongings yet, but if they find that ledger... My mother turns to Allison, her eyes wide with panic. What ledger? What did your father put in your bag? I don't know what Eleanor's talking about, Allison stammers, but I can see the doubt creeping into her eyes. She's remembering something. Perfect. Even if there's no ledger, the mere suggestion will make them panic and potentially confess to crimes I can't prove. Eleanor, William's voice turns pleading, even if such a thing existed, you're our daughter. Family protects family. Like you protected me at the border? I ask quietly. The visiting room falls silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. We made a hard choice, Rebecca finally says. We thought you were strong enough to survive on your own. Alison needed us more. No, I shake my head. You made the selfish choice. You chose the daughter who wouldn't question your lies, who wouldn't threaten your secrets, but you underestimated both of us. I stand to leave, but Alison's voice stops me. Eleanor, wait. There is something in my backpack. Dad gave me a notebook before we left. He said it was homework, but... William's face goes white as paper. Alison, stop talking. But it's not homework, is it? Alison's voice grows stronger as understanding dawns. It's numbers and names and... Oh God, Dad, what did you do? My parents exchange a look of pure terror. Whatever's in that notebook, it's real and it's damning. I need to speak with the agents, Alison whispers. I need to tell them about the notebook. Alison, no! Rebecca reaches for her, but the glass barrier stops her. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly, Alison replies, tears streaming down her face. You used me to smuggle evidence across the border. You made me an accomplice without even telling me. As the guards escort my sobbing parents back to their cells, Alison remains in her chair, staring at me through the glass. You knew, didn't you? She asks quietly. You knew about the notebook. I suspected, I admit. Dad always was terrible at hiding things. Why didn't you tell me before? We could have what? Stayed together as a happy family built on lies? I shake my head. They chose to abandon me, Alison. They chose to use you as a mule. These are the consequences of their choices. 3 hours later, Agent Patterson calls while I'm walking across Columbia's campus, the acceptance letter in my hand feeling like a victory trophy. Eleanor, we found the notebook. Your sister cooperated fully. His voice carries a mixture of relief and amazement. It contains detailed records of your father's corruption network in Mexico. Bribery, tax evasion, fraud. This evidence predates their trafficking connections by years. So, the charges will stick? All of them. Your parents are looking at 25 years minimum. The Mexican authorities want to extradite them after they serve their US sentences. He pauses. Your sister provided crucial testimony. She's been very brave. Brave. That's one word for it. I'd call it survival instinct, the same instinct that kept me alive long enough to expose them. What happens to Alison now? She'll be deported next week, but her cooperation means she won't face charges. She might even be eligible to reapply for US entry in 5 years instead of 10. 5 years of poverty in Mexico, while I build my American dream at Columbia. Not perfect justice, but close enough. That evening, I'm packing for my Columbia dorm when my phone rings. Antonio's voice calling from yet another blocked number. Congratulations, he says, his tone grudgingly respectful. You found a way to destroy them using real evidence. I have to admit, I'm impressed. Are you done trying to make me feel guilty? Actually, yes, because I realised something watching you today. His voice grows thoughtful. You didn't just want revenge, Eleanor. You wanted them to face the truth about who they really were. They were criminals who abandoned their daughter. They were also parents who loved one child more than the other. That's not illegal, just cruel. He pauses. But the corruption, the fraud, the willingness to use their own daughter as an unwitting accomplice, that's who they really were underneath the family facade. So, you approve now? I approve of justice, and watching Alison realise she was just another tool in their schemes. That was justice. She gets to start over knowing the truth instead of living a lie. I sink onto my bed, exhaustion finally hitting me. What happens now? Do you just disappear? I move on to whatever comes next, but Eleanor, his voice grows serious. Don't let this victory turn you into them. You've won, now build something better. The line goes dead for the final time. 6 months later, Columbia University. I'm walking across campus when I see the news alert on my phone. Mexican immigration scandal, corruption network dismantled, thanks to teen whistleblower. The article mentions that Alison Rodriguez, now 18, has enrolled in community college in Guadalajara and is studying to become a social worker helping separated families. There's a photo of her volunteering at a refugee centre, her face serene but determined. She found her purpose in the wreckage of our family's lies. That afternoon, I receive an unexpected email. From alison.rodriguez.mx@gmail.com. Subject: thank you. Eleanor, I hated you for months after the trial. I blamed you for destroying our family, for ruining my dreams, for taking away everything I thought I wanted. But working with separated families here, I see what you saved me from. Our parents didn't love us. They loved the idea of us as tools for their ambitions. You freed us both from that prison. I'm applying for a student visa to study social work at UT Austin next year. If they approve it, maybe we can meet for coffee sometime. Not as the family we were, but as the people we've chosen to become. I forgive you. More importantly, I understand you. Your sister, Alison. I stare at the email for a long time, feeling something crack open in my chest. Not revenge or satisfaction, but something warmer and more complex. Then I hit reply, Alison, coffee sounds perfect. There's a lot I need to tell you about second chances. Eleanor, I don't mention the rebirth. Some truths are too dangerous to share. But as I send the email, I realise Antonio was right. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about giving people the chance to become who they really are. My parents are serving their sentences. Alison is building a life based on truth instead of lies. And I'm finally free to be Eleanor Rodriguez, not the abandoned daughter, not the vengeful victim, but the woman who chose justice over revenge and found her family on the other side.